Good to have you with us tonight, folks. Thanks for watching The Ed Show. You know, for years, conservatives have tried to sell the country that we are a center-right country politically. No matter what the climate in the country is, they always love to, after elections, to show us this red and blue map. See all that red that's on there? We're a center-right country. Let me tell you something. With these protests that are going on around the country, we are not a center-right country. And you may ask, so where is the country? Well, personally, I feel like I'm living in a time warp. If I may, back in 1968, I was 14 years old. The Vietnam War was raging. Civil rights was in its infancy. I'm a product of forced busing for racial equality. Changes were taking place in this country, and the United States government at the time was so out of touch with the wishes of the people. We wanted out of Vietnam as a country, and we wanted civil rights and social justice. And what happened? The people took to the streets, just like they're doing today. I mean, this is like a flashback to those of us who are in our 40s and 50s and 60s. And it's interesting, a New Time magazine poll clearly shows now that 54% of Americans have a favorable opinion of these people who are in the streets, the Wall Street protesters. The same poll shows only 27% of Americans approve of the Tea Party. That's a pretty low number. My Virginia public school education tells me the 99% movement is twice as popular as the nut jobs in the Tea Party. I guess we could say now that America is awake to the issues that matter to those people who have kitchen tables and who are in the middle class. The movement is striking a passion, and some folks are going to extremes. Give you an example. Down in Covington, Kentucky, a Covington City Commissioner named Steve Frank posted this on Facebook. Turn out the lights on the occupiers. I feel like going Taliban on them. What the hell does that mean? Frank told the Cincinnati Enquirer, I'm resisting the occupiers and very proud to be a one percenter. Here are the pictures of Occupy Cincinnati, just across the river from Covington. Steve Frank wants to be a terrorist against these middle-class Americans. Now, to be fair, it's no surprise Commissioner Frank wants to rub out the 99% protesters. Frank has a history of putting American lives in danger. Here is the Commissioner Frank mugshot after he was thrown in jail for driving under the influence this July. Kentucky's finest is just the tip of the iceberg. Karl Rove now is attacking the 99% movement in the pages of the Wall Street Journal. Turd Blossom is warning Democrats not to say things like this.
I think people are frustrated, and the protesters are giving voice to a more broad-based frustration about how our financial system works.
And God bless them for their spontaneity. It's an independent people coming. It's young, it's spontaneous, it's focused, and it's going to be effective.
The American people do not think the system is fair or on the level. That is the core of what you're seeing on Wall Street. And that's what started, by the way. There's a lot in common with the Tea Party.
You know, we could go back into the archives and pull up interviews of lawmakers back in the 60s about the Vietnam War and about the social change that was taking place in this country, and you would find sound bites that are very similar to the ones that you just heard. Yet Karl Rove is warning Democrats not to talk like that. Rove says Democratic leaders are wrong in believing that Occupy Wall Street is the liberal alternative to the Tea Party. The Tea Party is a middle-class movement. Occupy Wall Street isn't a movement. It's a series of events populated by a weird cast of disaffected characters ranging from anarchists and anti-Semites to socialists and LaRouches. Rove is a complete fraud in his analysis. Middle-class Tea Party folk carried guns to presidential rallies and to rallies on the banks of the Potomac, and there were only about 50 of them. Proud Tea Party nut jobs carried Obama Hitler signs all over America for the last 3 years. We have the tape to prove it. The 99%ers I met in Chicago, gosh, there were teachers in the crowd, construction workers, engineers, letter carriers. And I even got tape at an interview with a librarian who was being cut. This is the real middle class movement in America, the real foundation of America that's being attacked. Rove and the Tea Party are responsible for Americans taking to the streets. The young protesters grew up under George W. Bush, squandered a surplus, signed unfunded mandates, and got us into 2 wars off budget. You think they had something to go to the streets about? The meltdown on Wall Street was on Bush's watch, and Rove wants to bury his legacy of failure? The Tea Party has filibustered and obstructed every jobs package President Obama has put on the table. That's a fact. This is why Americans like the 99% movement and disapprove of the Tea Party. Don't let anyone tell you America is a center-right country. Right now, it is not. Americans want jobs and approve of President Obama's jobs bill by almost 2-1. And yes, I'll say it. It is a liberal package because it takes tax dollars and invests in jobs, and only progressives do that. This is what the country wants. So again tonight, we're going to run the names of the senators who voted against the bill at the bottom of the screen for the entire hour. The middle-class Occupy movement deserves no less. Get your cell phones out. I want to know what you think. Tonight's question: which is the real middle-class movement? The 99%ers or the Tea Party? Text A for the 99%ers, text B for the Tea Party to 622-639. Love it when you go to our blog at ed.msnbc.com and leave a comment, and we'll bring you the results later on in the program. Joining me tonight is the mayor of Lansing, Michigan, Verge Bernero, who has been talking about the middle class ever since I met this man. He has been one of the fighters, one of the pioneers to say the middle class is under attack in this country. Verge has attended the Occupy Lansing events. Is this Occupy Lansing a middle-class movement? Verge, good to have you with us tonight.
Great to be here. Ed, you are such a patriot in every sense of the word. You send a chill down my spine. I hope every American can get the message that you're sending. You are right on. The Tea Party hijacked America's anger. The anger from the meltdown. They hijacked it, they perverted it, and that was not the real deal. This movement is the real revolt. This is the real deal. This is our chance to restore the American dream. That's what's at stake. That's what was taken from us. This unholy alliance of Washington and Wall Street hasn't served average Americans very well, and they are rising up. It started in New York, it spread, and now it's in Lansing, and I welcome it in Lansing, Michigan, and I urge Americans who care about the American dream and believe that the American dream should be for everybody, not just the few at the top. This is your chance. If you're a teacher, a policeman, a street worker, a sewer worker, or you're unemployed, a student, I don't care. As long as you're not one of the filthy rich at the top that don't give a damn about anybody else, this is your fight. This is our struggle to restore the American dream. It's time to get Wall Street out of the middle of the economy and get them on the sidelines where they belong and get a democracy restored that works for Main Street.
You know, Verge, the lines of division are well defined. Today, Republicans introduced the Real American Jobs Bill. I mean, this bill has a balanced budget amendment. They want to repeal the health care bill. They want to repeal Dodd-Frank. And, of course, they certainly want to go after unions and bust up labor unions and go after labor. Will this bill do anything to create jobs, in your opinion?
Look, in the words of Tim Barron, a local radio host, what it is a pant load. It's a joke. It's a sad, pathetic joke on the American people. They're not going to be fooled by it. We're ready for something more. Look, people deserve meat and potatoes. They've suffered long enough. We need real help. We need the Obama jobs plan that actually provides real jobs, real help. We need investment. You know, people are hurting. I started my day this morning at a soup kitchen. I talked to a lady that lived in the same house for 50 years and is now, her husband had that house, he's passed on, and now she's losing that house because she couldn't afford the $1,400. She could afford $900 a month, but when the bank moved it up to $1,400, she could no longer afford it. Now she's homeless. What sense does it make? Where is the relief? We have suffered enough under the rule of these banksters that are taking everything for themselves. We need some rules that work for regular people. We need a Main Street agenda instead of a Wall Street agenda. It is time to put Main Street back on the agenda, back at the top of the agenda, and get some real regulation over Wall Street.
And there there is no doubt that the foreclosures continue. In the third quarter in this country, they are up 14%. The banks are getting very aggressive. Mayor Verge Bernero, Lansing, Michigan, always a pleasure. Great to have you with us, my friend.
Great to be with you, Ed.
Now let's bring in Karen Nussbaum, Executive Director of Working America, the community affiliate of the AFL-CIO. Karen has been at Occupy D.C. Is this a middle-class movement?
I'll say, and it's not just the folks who are there in the parks, Ed, as you talked about, the teachers and librarians and construction workers who are there in big numbers. But Working America goes out into the neighborhoods, into the working class neighborhoods all over the country every single night. And we're talking about Occupy Wall Street in the neighborhoods, in those working class neighborhoods, and people embrace it. They say, yeah, that's what I've been thinking all along, and I'm glad those people are in the parks. We're making that bridge. Well, I think one of the things we have to fight against is make sure that the right doesn't divide us.
Yeah.
Doesn't pretend that folks in the parks are not the same as folks out in the neighborhoods.
You know, Karen, one of the things that's starting to frustrate me is that so many interviews being given by people who think they have a pulse of what's going on here. Look, the people are upset. They're protesting whether they have this issue, that issue, this issue, that issue. The fact is they don't like the way the country's going, and they are motivated enough to go out into the streets, whether it be not taxing the rich enough for the top 1%, whether it be a better health care, whether it be a jobs package, whether it be Wall Street and what they've done, whether it be foreclosures. I mean, there are a multitude of issues out there that people are frustrated about, and it's all coming together. The key here, I think, is that they're in the streets. And they're sending a message to the lawmakers of this country. So will the 99%, will it become a bigger political force than the Tea Party in 2012?
Oh, I think it certainly can. That what we've found now is that people who for a long time have known that what's the problem is corporations control our government. Folks get that. But now the people who are occupying have given that a voice and have expressed it for everybody. It's like what happened in the Battle of Seattle in 1999 when all of a sudden people got the global economy was working against people and the environment. It's that moment right now, and what we have to make sure is that we keep that movement knitted together, that there's no division between occupiers and folks in the neighborhoods. Working America during Wisconsin, which I think was the preview of what we're seeing right now. I think it was.
I don't think there's any doubt. I think you got Wisconsin now coming up. You got a recall of the governor there. There's a target right there politically for this crowd to stay engaged about. You've also got a November 8th vote in Ohio to repeal the collective bargaining law, Senate Bill 5, which is issue number 2 on the ballot. Karen, great to have you with us tonight. I could go for hours on this subject. I think you got the pulse of it, no doubt.